Can you? I think I'll sit here. I have to
But
leave.
I know everybody, I don't know you yet. Ruth. Eileen Obser.
And what is your name is what?
Eileen Obser, as it says on the book.
Okay.
And I was so pleased. Anybody of you read the book yet?
No.
None of you? That's amazing. Okay. Oh, that's distracting. That's okay.
No.
He's filming me. All libraries have done that, or else I've had other people in. I want to have music here today, but I was told no. Because in this book I have 72 mostly rock and roll songs cited. Okay? And my son, you know my son, Jeffrey, I don't know who else knows my son, but he's a musician. So I asked him last week for libraries that don't want musicians, and I'm not using it today, there's too many people around. But he did put 20 of the songs on this CD for me that are in the book, the originals, you know, by the Platters, by Sam Cooke, and you'll hear as I go along. Chuck Berry.
When music was music.
When music, okay, whatever. I love music.
Hi, Annie.
Hi, how are you?
But anyway, so here it is. So I was going to my reading on Thursday night up at Connecticut Library, and I listened to the music on my way, and I was singing along with it. I thought, I'm going to lose my voice before I even have to speak from this book, you know. And one of my students is a musician, and they had a grand piano up there. They had it, so he was playing the grand piano with rock and roll songs before and after. It was great. It just fit. Every library is different, you know. You get different vibes. So anyway, I'm pleased about this. And here's the book. Oh, I got this from. I don't follow astrology, but here it was. My Cancer is my sign. I have my birthday in a couple of weeks.
Me too.
Oh, happy birthday to us.
You know something, guys, I went to the ATM machine at Chase, and because my birthday is in a couple of days, and the first thing it said is happy birthday.
Oh my God.
She's nice.
Is that nice? No, I mean, right, but it's such a that kind of is good for, anyway.
Banking being personal.
I know.
But-
Chase Bank.
Here's what I read, picked off line, just out of nowhere. Why did my eyes go over to the astrology section? I don't know. It says, it's a great day to host something fun for friends or colleagues. You're the perfect host, and your people are sure to have a good time. Okay?
We promise.
That's what it said. So I like to read from the book, and you know, you can either interrupt me as I finish a section, not mid-word or something, and then you know, like do some Q&A. And I picked out. I wanted to read from the disclaimer. Now, Elizabeth in the room knows more than any of you because she read early versions of it. She's even in my acknowledgments as one of the early readers. Elizabeth Layton in the back.
Could you just give us a little synopsis of what
I am going to, yeah. Oh, yeah, you don't even know about that. I'll read from the back cover.
Okay.
Set in the mid to late 1950s to early 60s. Until I published this book, nobody really knew how old I was. Now everybody knows how old I am. You know, because they always think I'm 5 years younger or something. Well, so what? Relates my personal experience growing up in Queens, New York. You all know Queens. Glendale, Queens, New York. And my doomed to fail marriage at 18 to a 19-year-old boy from the candy store crowd we hung out with. I show how two naive, uninformed teenagers were influenced by social and religious pressures to disastrous consequences. It's not a happy story in many, many parts of this book, but I'm not reading those really sad parts, if you don't mind, you know. Hopefully you'll read the book. Because it all blends in. I go back and forth. I weave it in. And people are telling me it really works, so I'm glad to hear that. I've been writing my whole life about me. I've published lots and lots of personal essays over the years, fiction, and we'll turn off the phones, including mine. And but this is the first book, so it's very exciting. You know, I've been writing and studying since I'm a very young person, and I'm all over the place with playwriting, screenwriting, fiction, nonfiction. I went back to school. Let me tell you that. And, This book is over 20 years in the making, okay? But I didn't work on it constantly or try to market it constantly. I'd work on it, put it away, take it out, a few years later, try again, get rejected, make changes, that's it. Then I went back to school, I got 2 degrees during the time of this book, and each time I put the book away. And then I decided to use it as my master's thesis from Stony Brook, Southampton. I went back for that MFA, and I had very good advice from one of the professors about changing around where the book starts.
Which one? Which professor?
Luann Walker, memoirist herself. I love her. And also it went on too long. I have a sequel to this book, but it was all in one. And I think that's the way Elizabeth saw it, so I cut it. And it works somehow. I don't say so, but everybody, thank God, is telling me it works. So that's the story. And you'll have more questions, but I'd like to first read the disclaimer just a little bit. This is the story of 2 young people whose marriage didn't work. It is not meant to blame either of the kids, Billy or I, that was his real name, Billy, who were perhaps too young and ill-informed to make a marriage work. I've changed Billy's last name for the privacy of his later family. I also did that for legal reasons, okay? Just, nobody's bothered me, but I just didn't feel like having any problems. And I changed a lot of other names, but except I have family names, certain friends who wanted their names used, people who are deceased. So that's the way I did it. It's a whole lot involved. Anybody else here writing memoir? Yes. Yes, okay. Yes. And you, okay. So
We-
here we are.
Elizabeth and I have been in a class together.
Oh, with what's her name?
Kara.
Kara, okay, yeah, she's teaching here soon again.
And she's teaching here soon again.
Yeah, I start next week, and
Yeah.
my classes start next week in Bridgehampton, the same day, Tuesday, but in the daytime.
Well, you're all invited to Kara's. It starts July 8th
Yeah, I
at
know.
5 o'clock,
Yeah, I saw it in the paper.
especially you, Ann.
Are you in that class too?
I'm thinking about it.
Okay, well, to come to my class in the afternoon too, you can have 2 classes. No, we start, for 5 weeks, we start next week.
Oh, I didn't know that, okay.
Yeah, no, that's the over 6 years now, that my
Hmm.
class is going on.
That's this Tuesday, on the 5th.
Mine starts on July 1st.
Oh, yours is July 1st. Tara's isn't until
The
July
8th,
8th.
every Tuesday in July.
Right. Okay, so, yeah, I'm year-round, we take a month off, 6 weeks off, and we go back again. It's very nice. Different people come back and forth. I love it. Okay, so this is on the day of my wedding, January 30th, 1960. It starts with right in the middle of the honeymoon in Hawaii. I had never been, until I was 18 years old, I had never been on a plane. All of a sudden I was in San Francisco, Hawaii, and Los Angeles for this honeymoon. That was the best part of the marriage.
It went downhill from there.
Yeah. Have to read why. So we got through my bridal shower and we got through Nana Moore's funeral, both of which occurred in December. Moore is the name I changed Billy's name to, Moore. And so his grandmother died right before our wedding. And now, and all his family had died, which is his mother, then his father, another grandmother, within a period of a few years. So this might explain why Eileen fell into the role that she did of being with him. And now on a cloudy, damp morning in late January 1960, Billy and I were to be pronounced husband and wife. I can't believe it, my mother said, holding back tears, helping me put on the bridal crown and veil. My baby, our firstborn, married. Oh, Mama, I said, catching my breath. I didn't want to lose control now. Her hands were soft and warm against my forehead. Last night she had washed my hair, my head hanging back into the kitchen sink for probably the last time. I would miss the gentle, deep massaging of my scalp that was part of this weekly ritual. Again, a wave of panic came over me, so strong I had to hold on to the wall to steady myself. What was I about to do? The thought had frightened me when I first woke up And a second time when I washed my face and looked in the mirror. I wouldn't tell anyone about these feelings. It was just normal premarital jitters, I decided. My father, uncomfortable in his rented black tux and bow tie, tried to be useful, keeping my 3 younger brothers from stepping on my gown and handing over my mother's old, in quotes, sequin-covered white satin pouch that complemented the short white kid gloves borrowed from my aunt. For blue, I wore a white garter trimmed with a light blue ribbon. Almost everything I had on was white and new. You have to have something right up to the silky white gown that adorned my pale, freckled body. I used to be very thin, believe it or not, extreme. Daddy, close by, smelled of Old Spice aftershave lotion, which he only wore on special occasions. His mood seemed to mellow when he wore the fragrance. There were no disapproving frowns, no loud yelling, and no turning silent on us. I closed my eyes tight and silently said a quick prayer. Dear Lord, let me remember the good things about my family and not dwell on all those things that made me unhappy. Doug, the photographer, kept snapping away. He's around there too. Say cheese, that's it. Now turn your head toward your father. You, Mr. Kirshner, hold her hand. Don't cry, Daddy. He looked as if he might lose it completely. Okay, then I backtracked. When I was 13, I started hanging out with new friends and began going steady with my first boyfriend, Lenny. My social life drew me more and more away from home. I was no longer my father's little girl. You start now, Eileen, he told me, and by the time you're 18, if not before that, you'll be sick of parties. You'll grow up too fast. There's a whole lot you'll miss that's important. Things you should learn about slowly. Daddy didn't say it outright. You can't go out to the party, to the candy store, to the softball game, to the dance. He realized, I guess, that it would be futile to put demands on me. I was filled with the excitement and joy and adventurous spirit of my new crowd, and now of having my first real boyfriend. Through my older cousins, Buddy and Jimmy, this book is dedicated to my cousin Buddy, who was my close friend for so many years of my life. I was meeting so many new people. I was part of the crowd, the gang, the pack. There was no keeping down the quiet little girl I used to be. You're going out again? Daddy said this often on weekend nights, all during those early teen years. Doesn't she ever stay home? This to Mama as I prepared to leave again. She stays in her room listening to that god-awful stuff they call music. He said while I stood there looking guilty, or she's gone.